Okay, so let's talk about our speaker today and give a little background and experience. Adam Lewenberg, he is the president of Postal Advocate, the only mail audit and recovery firm in the US and Canada. We manage a portfolio of over 160,000 pieces of mailing equipment for the largest US companies. He speaks and teaches nationally on mail savings and industry trends. He is the former industry co-chair for the Boston Postal Customer Council and Mail Systems Management Association. He has certifications in CMDSS and MDC. He is also a featured writer for Mailing Systems Technology magazine, and he also worked for one of the largest mailing vendors for over 17 years as the director of national sales for Presort, tabletop inserters, addressing, hardware, software, and green offerings. He was also one of the top 5 account managers nationally, working with some of the nation's top accounts. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Doris. So good morning, everybody. So today we're talking about everybody's favorite topic, USPS rate increases. I'm being sarcastic, obviously. So what we're going to cover today is what rates are changing, how this impacts you. So, what are the things that you need to think about? What do you need to do? Savings tips throughout this entire presentation. We're going to talk about ways to save money in every category that's going up. And then thoughts about the USPS. These rates go into effect January 24th, 2021. The reason that it's always on Sunday is because it gives people a chance to download the rates and make sure when they come in Monday morning that everything's set up and they're ready to go. So we're going to focus on the most common mailing rate categories that the majority of organizations throughout the United States use. We're not going to cover, we're not going to cover periodicals. We're not going to cover esoteric international rate structures. All that stuff is in the Postal Explorer website. You can go to the link below if you want to see it. Our goal is to cover what 95% of you use all the time and to show the impact on those pieces. So first, let's talk about what's happening at the Postal Service. What a year we've had. I mean, unbelievable change that's happened. One of the biggest changes, obviously with COVID, is the work from home movement. And the work from home movement has really changed mail as far as we know it. And so let's talk about what happened. Let's start from the bottom of this chart just to get some perspective on it. If we look at first class mail, marketing mail, which is your advertising content, periodicals, and competitive, which is your parcels, your priority mail, your express mail, your first class parcel. And we look at those volumes prior to COVID. So we look at the fourth quarter of last year, we see that volumes were down about 2% overall. And that revenue was down revenue was down 2% and pieces were down 6%. And the reason that, revenue doesn't go down with as much as the piece counts is because the post office keeps increasing rates. But you can see letter volumes, basically are going down. Parcel volumes are starting to go up slightly. Okay. Then we look at, Q1. COVID didn't really start until the middle of March. So this probably didn't have a lot of COVID impact in that. And you could see that the mail volumes, are down. Periodicals is taking a pretty big hit, but probably had nothing to do with COVID in that sense. And you could see from a pieces and revenue perspective. COVID hits and look at the volume declines. Our first class mail volumes went down from a pieces 9%. Marketing mail, people who were doing advertising content went down 36% in the first quarter. Periodicals went down 17%. And shipping went up, 0.6%. It took people a little bit of time to sort of get their arms around what was happening. Business kind of shut down a lot in the second quarter of 2020. And then look what happens as we develop more of a steady state over the summer. When you look at a piece perspective, package volume went up 48% as we all started ordering things from home. Periodicals kept going down. Marketing mail went down and first class mail went down. So you could see that with parcels, they're making up for some of the revenue. Overall, if you go look to the bottom, their revenues are up 4% due to mainly because the increases in parcel. But the decreases in the letters mail, in the first class mail, and the marketing mail, and the periodicals is decimating that class of mail. And what we saw in the 2007, 2008, recession was that those mail volumes that left never came back. So even after we came out of that recession, mail volumes never increased to get us back. It's just those were gone, and that was the new steady state. So I would expect that we'll probably see that this new reduced volume becomes the steady state for future declines as time goes on. And parcels will probably keep growing, not maybe at this type of rate, but it's going to keep growing as we order more things from home. Because let's face it, what we learned from this recession is that people are working from home, and a lot of people like it. And most organizations are starting to develop more work from home strategies that's going to reduce the amount of people in offices. Okay, so just want to give a holistic view of how we see what's happening at the Postal Service. The declines in the letter classes of mail are going to force them to do more increases over time to make up for the volume declines. And that's just inevitable of what we see is happening. Now, let's talk about what these rate changes are. So first class single piece mail, this is not the metered category. This is if you were to buy stamps at the Postal Service, or for flats. In the flats case, it is what you run through your meter. We're not, for a 1 ounce letter, you're seeing no increase, 55 cents before, 55 cents after. The big difference is the additional ounce rate was 15 cents, and that's going across the board up to 20 cents for letters. This creates, for heavier weight pieces, a 7 to 12% increase in cost. So if you're sending heavier weight letters, you're going to see big increases here. On flats, they already got the 20-cent increase, I think it was in the last couple of years. And so there's no increase on flats that you'll see. Postcards are increasing by 3%. Metered mail. Most of you are on this call work at some sort of business or organization that probably either uses PC postage or uses a postage meter to run their mail, and you're seeing slight increases. The 1 ounce letter is going from 50 cents to 51 cents. So you're still saving 4 cents a piece, which we'll talk about more in a minute, but it's going up 1 cent. But again, the additional ounces are going up significantly. They're going, a 65-cent piece is now 71 cents. A 3 ounce piece that was 80 cents is going to 91 cents. So you can see if you're sending heavier weight items, you're getting big increases with this rate change. Okay, but it's still, by having some sort of automated mailing technology, whether it's a postage meter or PC postage, you're saving decent amounts of money. You're still saving 4 cents per piece. And you can see how those numbers add up based on your annual spends. If you spend $10,000 a year, you're saving $784 a year in postage. $100,000, $7,843. So there's a savings that adds up by having this type of technology. And technology starts at about $15 a month. So if you're doing more than probably, 1,000 pieces of, $1,000 in postage a year, it may benefit you from the convenience and the postage savings by having a meter or having some sort of technology to do it to get these rates. First class mail commercial. So what commercial means is you're automating it in some way. So whether you're either bring it to a pre-sort service, which is probably the most common, and they'll pick up your mail and they'll sort it and commingle it, or whether you're in your office putting postal barcodes on and sorting the pieces down using some sort of automation software. These are the rates that you get. Some decent changes that are happening here. So the 1 ounce rate is going, for the 5-digit, is going from 38.9 to 0.398, 2.3%. AADC, and so just to show you, if you're not comfortable with these sort levels, 150 pieces going to a 5-digit zip code gets you this rate. If you have 150 pieces going to a schematic of 3-digit zip codes like 902, 903, and 906 as an example, they would get the AADC rate, and then everything else gets the mixed AADC rate. And you can see the increases, 2.3%, 2.1, and 2.5. Pre-sorted mail, if you're doing a manual pre-sort or using a pre-sort service, those that is giving you that rate is basically staying unchanged. Okay, flats, you're seeing a much bigger increase. Overall, you're seeing a 7 to 8% increase, regardless of the sort levels on the flat sizes. And in postcards, you're seeing about a 3% increase. If you're using full service IMB, you're still qualified for the additional 0.003 cent savings. Marketing mail. So marketing mail, just to be clear to everyone, is you're doing basically advertising, non-personalized correspondence. So every piece in your mailing is the same. There's nothing significantly different besides an address or maybe a simple merge field that could be different from one letter to another. So think about a newsletter, like a solicitation, something where everyone's getting the same piece. Those rates are going up. If you look at letters, the highest sort levels are getting no increases. And then as the sorts become less dense, you're getting slight increases, but it's relatively small. But if you're doing any marketing mail in flats, you're getting a huge increase. It's the post office's incentive to get people converting to letters. because you can see 7 to 9% are some of the biggest increases we've seen in this category in a long time. If you're nonprofit, you're seeing similar things. You know, the letter increases are minimal besides the lowest sort levels, and you know, the flats are getting similar increases. If you're doing heavier weight items, you're seeing similar increases that we saw to flats. So these are for items over 4 ounces, you know, 8 to 10% increases, 7% increases in the per pound rate. You know, in the per piece rate, you know, for some strange reason, for nonprofits are getting a slight decrease in this segment, and then everything else is going up. Destination entry discounts mean that you're basically having the Postal Service, you're basically moving mail further into the Postal Service, and it only applies to marketing mail. And basically what you're able to do is, if you can bring mail closer to a destination sectional center facility, as an example, you get to save an additional amount off these prices that you see above. And so the reason I highlight this is, if you're delivering it to the DNDC, there's no change in rate for letters. If you're delivering it to the sectional center facility, you're actually, your discount is decreasing by 8%. For flats, it's the opposite. If you can move mail closer to its final destination, you're getting a 60.5% change to the DNDC and a 44% increase in savings to the DSCF. And you can see for bigger flats, you're seeing similar increases. So now that we've gone through all those different, like those are some of the main rates that people use, let's talk about some savings ideas on those. So first is, use a postage meter to save the 4 cents. We talked about that, or PC postage. If you're doing large volumes, either 500 pieces a day or have one-time mailings over 1,000 pieces, consider using a pre-sort service. Pre-sort services are going to be able to pick up your mail at the end of the day, commingle it with other mailers, run it through their sorters, and get automation rates. And it's considered a work share program where basically the pre-sort service splits the discount with you. So if you're basically, we're sending them at 51 cents through your meter, you'd be able to get those for 42.8 to 46 cents, depending on what you negotiated with your pre-sort service. And it's a significant savings. You don't have to do it. It's the most popular means of getting postal discounts because you don't have to do anything. Pre-sort service comes in, does all the work, and then shares the savings with you. If you can automate those mailings in your office, you can have huge postal savings. So that same piece that was 51 cents goes down to 39.8 to 45 cents, and you get to keep all the savings. You don't have to split it with the pre-sort service. If you can convert your mailings to marketing mail, because if you're sending a large mailing and it's a generic piece, not an invoice or a statement or a check, but it's a solicitation letter, it's just a basic communication where everyone's getting the same thing, you could get it down to 25.9 to 30.4 cents. And if you're a nonprofit, you can get that rate for marketing mail down to 13.8 to 18.3 cents. So you can see there's huge savings that you can have. The other thing about it is, and this is one of the biggest impacts that I think that we're going to see on this rate change, is when you send things through any of the automation classes, including using a pre-sort service, you get the same rate for up to 3.5 ounces. There was something that over the past like 4 or 5 years, the post office used to be 2 ounces rides free, then 3.5 ounces rides free. So basically what the post office is saying is, if you run it through these automation classes, which makes the job easier for the Postal Service, you can put in up to 3.5 ounces of stuff. So if you send out a 3-ounce newsletter, it would be 91 cents. If you ran it through a pre-sort service, that same piece, because you get to go up to 3.5 ounces at the 1-ounce rate, is 42.8 to 46 cents. You know, almost a 50%, more than a 50% decrease. Flats, you can see the huge difference: $2.40 down to $2.17, down to $1.86, down to $7, and if you're a nonprofit, it could be as little as 47 cents. Okay, and you can see what it is for postcards. So if you are sending things out first class, one strategy is to consider, can you make that piece generic? Are the merge fields required for you to do it? Is there any that could make it qualify for marketing mail because it could be deemed as more generic? With flats prices going up 7%, 7 to 10% this year, this is going to be more important than ever for people to look at. So basically, if you're sending things at a flat 9 by 12, 10 by 13, you know, a large envelope that looks like this, you're getting the flat rates from the Postal Service. If that piece could be folded in half and put into a 6 by 9.5 envelope, then you could get the letter rates. The savings are incredibly significant. So let's just say you're sending 6 to 10 sheets of paper in an envelope. It goes into a flat envelope today. It's $1.40 with its combined weight. And these are standard types of weights that you'd see. If you were to just meter that, it would be 71 cents. And if you could run it through a pre-sort service, it would be 43 to 46 cents. And if you automated it yourself, it'd be 40 to 45 cents. 49 to 72% savings by just folding these pieces. So it's something to consider. Does it have to be in the larger envelope? The larger envelopes are also much more expensive to buy. So if folding is an option, there's big savings this year because of the big increases we're seeing on flats. Priority mail. So priority mail is anything, 1 to 70 pounds, 2 to 3 day delivery throughout the country. There's 3 different classes, but only 2 are relevant. There's a retail class, and retail is if you run it through a postage meter or you bring it to the post office and you pay at the retail counter, you get the retail rates. There's commercial base, which means you run it through a PC postage solution. USPS.com no longer qualifies for the commercial rates. They only have retail rates on USPS.com. And then Commercial Plus used to be a discounted service. The only people who really get discounted services are those that have negotiated service agreements, and you're supposed to do over 50,000 pieces a year of priority mail in order to get those types of discounts. So let's talk about what those increases are. So there was a 40-cent temporary increase that was in Q4. That's going away. That's been eliminated. There is a 20 to 25% increase to Zone 9, Alaska and Hawaii. If you're sending a lot of things to Alaska and Hawaii, you're going to see big increases in this rate change. But overall, you're seeing that for retail customers, you're getting basically a 4 to 9% increase. Commercial rate customers, 3 to 7% increases. And you could see it varies based on weight. We sort of look at it, the flat rate envelopes are kind of going up the least. With retail, the flat rate are, you could see down here, you can see the increases. But at the lighter weights, it's going up more at the heavier weights than the lighter weights is basically what we're seeing. But pay attention to that, Alaska and Hawaii, to see the increases. Priority Mail Express, there was a $1.50 temporary Q4 increase on commercial parcels. That's been eliminated. And there's 0 increase for zones 1, 2, 3, and 3, but a 4 to 8% increases on zone 4 to 9. So what the post office is saying is they're sending express mail close by, they have an easier time getting it there, and they're not going to hit you with any increases. If you're doing something that's far away, you're going to see much bigger increases. So for savings tips on priority and express mail, move to commercial rates. If you're doing any decent volume of priority mail, of first class parcel, of express mail, use a PC postage solution to do it. There's huge discounts over the retail rates. Look at the comparison of the rate structure. So we saw what percentage of the rates were increasing, but if we were to compare the commercial rate to the retail rate, the flat rate envelopes are 9%, retail is 9% more. The 1 to 5 pounds, which is the most common, are 17% more, and as it gets heavier, it increases. You can see in the express mail, it's 12 to 15% more. So you need to process it through a PC postage solution. Click and ship from USPS.com does not count. It's all retail rates. There are multiple vendors that have options to do this. It does require to enter the address. So instead of basically just kicking out a meter imprint or paying at the Postal Service, you have to generate a 4x6 shipping label to get these commercial rates. The Post Office is giving you these discounts because they want to be competitive in their tracking capabilities with what is offered from the private carriers. And they want to make it easier for them to induct your mail into their system. So what it means is, in order to process a priority, if you're just running it through your postage meter, you now have to stop and you have to key the address into the system or have a database into the systems. But it's much easier, and you can track everything in one place, and people find that having a PC postage solutions makes life much simpler. Many of the postage meter vendors on newer solutions are including PC postage tools to be able to accommodate these rules and get these discounts. So you should ask your vendor if you have that available. Also, if you need PC postage, it starts at about $15 a month, depending on the solution. First class package service. This is the gem of the Postal Service because they're the only ones who can do it. When you talk to the private carriers, they operate by the pound. So rates are 1 pound or 2 pounds or 3 pounds. The Postal Service has a way to send packages at the ounce level. And so you could send, as an example, let's say a 6-ounce package for $5.20 for retail and for $3.85 for commercial rates, where the FedEx and UPS and DHL and the other private carriers have to basically operate at the pound level, where they're going to start at much higher rates. Okay, so overall, the increases in these are 6% for 4 to 6% for retail is what you can expect, and 4 to 10% for commercial. We strongly recommend people moving to first class parcel commercial where possible, because look at the savings. It is basically by just being able to produce this 4x6 label, not just slapping a meter imprint on these pieces. The savings are as high as 40%. And the reason the savings are higher at these heavier weights is because if you send it retail, the retail rates only go up to 13 ounces. If you send commercial, the rates go up to 15.99 ounces. So in other words, this defaults to priority. If you do retail, it defaults to priority over 13 ounces. With the commercial version, you get to keep using this rate structure. And the rate savings are huge. But this is one of the biggest savings areas of the Postal Service. It's typically the most competitive going to residences, especially for lightweight, no matter what your discounts are with the private carriers. If you're sending lightweight items, this is probably a really good service to consider. So overall, moving to commercial rates, these are the savings you can look at. First class parcels, the average savings is 27%. Priority mail is 19% overall, and Priority Mail Express is 15%. And the reason I say overall, most people who use Priority Mail and Priority Mail Express are doing it for packages less than 10 pounds. Items over 10 pounds, typically the private carriers end up being less expensive. So at the lower weights is what we typically focus on. And you can see that if you're spending $1,000, a year in spend, you'd save about $200, converting to commercial. If you spend 10,000, you save 2,000, and 100,000, you save 20,000. So depending on what your shipping volumes are, we strongly recommend moving to commercial rate because the savings are huge. Some additional rate change items to consider. International, obviously there's far too many international classes to focus on. We're just going to focus on the basics. Most people that are doing international are doing 1 ounce, 2 ounce letters and postcards. Those rates are really not changing. Still $1.20 on the letters for the 1 ounce. There's no increase on the 2 ounces, and postcards are staying the same. Library mail, if you're doing library mail, we looked at some of the basic weights. You're seeing 3 to 4% increases, and media mail, similar 3 to 4% increases. Special services, a couple to focus on. We don't have to go through every one of them. Certificate of mailing is popular, 3% increase. Registered, 2%. The biggest special service that people use is certified mail. And certified mail is seeing, relatively small increase of only 5 cents or 1.4%. What's different is in the return receipt. If you're doing return receipt retail, like you're filling out the green cards to get them back, you're not going to see an increase in that. So you're really only seeing the 5 cents to do a certified with return receipt. If you're doing the electronic versions, you're seeing a 5 cent increase in that, or about 3%. So not a huge increase on the certifieds, but it's important to know because it is changing. Insurance is going up a little bit. Some of the tracking services are going up. I want to focus really briefly. A lot of you have postal permits, and it could be permits for business reply mail. It could be permit for, signing up for pre-sort discounts for automation classes because you submit your mailings to the Postal Service. Those rates, the basic permit fees are going up from $240 to $245. Some of the other business reply account management fees are going up as well, as you can see here. And we're going to talk about business reply in a moment. You can see the basic permit fees are going from $240 to $245. Certified mail with electronic return receipt. So let's just talk about this. Even though the electronic version is having an increase, it still saves $1.10 over the retail version. If you're filling out the green cards and you're doing any volume of those, consider the electronic versions. It's much easier to do. All the transactions are stored in one place, so you can see which transactions have been delivered and which aren't. And instead of having to manage all these green cards to your office, you have an electronic repository. You can basically one-page PDFs with the signature from that certified all at once, and it saves you $1.10 per piece. So lots of options on how to process electronic return receipt. Strongly recommend it if you're doing certifieds. So business reply mail, this is one of the most overlooked things about mail. So we manage business reply mail for a lot of our clients, and we see when we first start doing the analysis on it, we see this in every account. So it's something you could pay attention to, and we just want to point these things out. So the way business reply mail works, a lot of you have business reply mail accounts, is that it charges an annual permit fee of $245. And then based on the type of account, there's either no fees or there's an annual account maintenance fee of $740. And if you're in the QBRM high volume, it's $2460. So you can see the fees to have an account range from $245 to $11,000 based on the type of account you have. The type of account you have determines what rate you pay for those pieces that get returned. So with business reply mail, the reason of doing it is, let's say I send out 10,000 marketing pieces, and I want people to, send back, a check or a payment or something to do some action. I only pay for those pieces that get returned. So if I only get 50 pieces back, I only paid for the 50 pieces that get returned. So the post office charges you based on what type of account you have. So you pay account, you pay 86 cents to get every one of those returns back. If you have a high volume account, it's about 10 cents. Then if a qualified business reply account, which means you put some extra markings on the pieces and things like that, 7 cents, and a high volume is 1.4 cents. And then the postage per piece varies a little bit as well, the basic versus high volume. But when you look at cost per piece, a basic one is $1.41 to get back versus a high volume is 64 cents versus a QBRM is 60 cents versus 55 cents. So what people miss out is they sign up for an account and put it on autopilot, and they don't pay attention to how many returns they're getting. If you're getting lots of returns, and we had a client getting almost 100,000 returns a year, and they were on a basic account, so they were paying $1.41 for 100,000 returns versus 64 cents. It's a huge difference. And you could see the break even on these accounts is around 1,000. So if you do more than 1,000 pieces, if you get more than 1,000 returns back, you should consider a high volume account or a basic QBRM account. But it's important to pay attention to these things because the savings can be huge. Packages. So the biggest savings tip I can give you on packages, priority mail, express mail, FedEx, UPS, DHL, some of the smaller regional carriers, is it's really hard. Most of them run off independent proprietary systems, and very few people are comparing the rates on each one. A lot of people just use free carrier provided systems that the carrier gives them to just process their rates alone. So best in class is to have rate shopping comparison tools that can make these calculations on the fly. And the reason for that is because all these carriers have different benefits. So the post office's benefits are they don't charge extra fees for things the private carriers charge, like fuel surcharges that's on every package, residential and delivery area surcharge fees. So if you're sending to residences, which is really popular because of COVID, you may be paying $4 to $8 based on the zip code of that item just because it's a residence on top of the package costs. Saturday delivery costs that the post office doesn't charge. If you misdid the address, there's address correction charges that the private carriers charge that the post office doesn't. They typically have the best rate for lightweight items going to residents, and they have a first-class parcel rate that is by the ounce versus the pound that we talked about, and they give free boxes. So that all makes the post office sound great, but the private carriers, based on your volume, will negotiate rates with you, where you can have a contract for rates that are typically huge depending on your volume. If you're doing decent volumes with them, they'll give significant discounts. They could make them, in many cases, less expensive than the Postal Service for different types of services. They have guaranteed service. If you need to know something's there tomorrow, or something's going to be there in 2 days, or that a ground gets delivered in 3 days, UPS and FedEx are your best bet for that, because the post office can't do that. They can tell you for express mail, they guarantee delivery, but usually most organizations aren't going to be using express mail for the post office. They're going to be using priority mail due to the costs. They have ground service with 1 to 5 day guaranteed delivery. A lot of items shipped UPS and FedEx are going to get delivered next day, guaranteed within 250 miles, basically in zone 2. And you may have a contract that even extends that. They'll give you dedicated account managers, and they have the best rates of items over 5 pounds or lighter weight items going to businesses. assuming you have a corporate agreement. So the best in class way to manage this is tools to make these decisions on the fly. These used to be really expensive platforms that were very complicated to implement. Now there's easy ways to do it. There's cloud-based multi-carrier systems, everything from simple to complex. They could be just at one location or they could be across your entire enterprise. Most of this stuff's in the cloud. There are still some systems that are PC server based, but most of this is cloud-based now that makes it easier to deploy and manage. So keep this in mind if you're doing a lot of shipments, if you have a lot of spend with UPS and FedEx, if you have any postal priority mail spends, it's a good idea to have some tool and mechanism for comparing these because the savings are significant. How to budget for this increase. So we have a copy of this tool that we're happy to share. If you're trying to like report up to management and say like, what do we need to increase our postage budget? This is the way I would think about it. 1, 2, and 3 ounce, we've sort of put, this is the percentages that we put. You could change these percentages, but we sort of stated the fact that of letter mail, this is the percentage change that you can expect. Overall, we think about a 3% increase on your letter mail. All you need to do with this tool is fill in your estimated spends from last year, and it'll calculate for you how much additional to budget. So it goes over the main classes, and you can see the percentage changes overall change based on class. To be safe, I would budget for a 3 to 4% increase to cover yourself. Or you could use this tool, and we're happy to send you a copy of it where you can like plug it in a more detailed way. So what you need to do. So if you have a mail machine, make sure to download the new rates before January 24th when the rates go into effect. So basically, the way to do that is if you've loaded money in, if you need to load money into your postage meter, hit refill. Your postage meter should say on it, do you want to download the most updated rates? And it will download the rates for you. Newer postal systems that are connected via an Ethernet connection, many of the newer ones, especially the medium to high volume levels, are constantly connected. So they're constantly polling the vendors, making sure. If you're not sure if you have the rates in your system, the way to do it is on your meter, around the refill button, depending on where you have it, you can check available funds, and that will dial out to your mailing vendor, and it will see how much funds do you have available in the account. At that time you've created a connection, they'll ask you if you want to download the rates if they're not in there. But on Monday morning when you come in, or Sunday if you want to check it, do it at that time. Just make sure that your meter says 51 cents and as its default 1 ounce postage rate, and that's the key thing. If you have questions, here are links from the different mailing vendors that you can go to. They all have pages to talk about rate change. They all have rate change support. You can go to the Post Office Explorer website, which is here, and they'll have different information on the rate change. And all the rates that we looked at today, we have in sort of a cheat sheet. So you can, if you need this, you can go to our website and you can download it. And it'll show you the changes in the different classes so you can make it easy for your team. So hopefully this type of educational format was helpful. We're strong believers in education. A little bit about us. We manage the mailing spends for large enterprises. We create the visibility to what those spends are across their enterprise, and then we help them manage it and drive savings. And we've helped our clients save $61 million in this category. We manage the largest fleet of mailing equipment in the world, we believe, about 161,000 pieces of mailing equipment. And our average client has saved 59% on equipment, which averages out to almost $2 million. On top of that, we've helped our clients save about $19 million in lost postage, vendor overcharges, and fees that we see, in most organizations. All of our team, the majority of our team, came from the mailing industry. We have 175 years of experience. We provide web dashboards because we find the biggest problem in this space is that people don't have the visibility to effectively manage it. They don't have the data to make better decisions. We manage that data in a way that makes it visible. We put it in our web platform. We give them visibility to it, and we help them make decisions around it. And then we manage it ongoing. So our clients are in all industries. It doesn't make any difference what industry they are. It just matters that they're organizations that have diverse mailing spend. You can see we're in 8 of the top 15 banks, 3 of the top 10 insurance companies. It doesn't frankly make any difference what industry. It just matters that there's a decent mailing spend in fragmented local pockets of mail spends. And what we do for most clients is we do a no-cost analysis of your mail spend. So we'll pull together where all your mail spends are throughout the country and Canada, if you'd like. We need just a one-page letter of authority that says that we can go, reach out to the vendors on your behalf and we can collect this data. And then we pull together everything to show you what's happening inside your organization. And then from there, you make a decision if you'd like to move forward or not. And if so, we'll then issue the credit request, the lost postage requests, avoidable fees. We'll negotiate, better contract pricing for you. And then we'll work directly with your end users on asset validating they have the equipment, right sizing it, and terminating any equipment that's unneeded. And we basically stay with our clients. We don't sign anything for you. You approve everything that happens. We manage it in our web dashboard to make it easy, and then we give ongoing support because most people have fleets and issues that come up on a constant basis they need help with. The beauty of our model is most clients are on contingency-based agreements that state that if we don't save you any money, you don't pay us anything. It's based on what we achieve. Some clients like to be on management fees or specific project-based tools, but that's how we work, and we found that we're able to drive a lot of savings for our clients based on how we do it. So I want to open it up to any questions, and I want to thank everybody for being on the call today. Hopefully the information was informative and it gave you what you needed to know about the rate change. So Doris, I'm going to open it up.
Thanks. So just as a reminder, there's 2 ways to ask a question. You can raise your hand and I can unmute you so that you can ask your question, or you can type your question in the chat box. Any questions? A couple of questions about a copy of the presentation. There will be a post-webinar email where a link to the presentation will be available. Okay. Next question. You showed mailing automation rates. Does it make sense to take advantage of this?
So the typical guidelines are if you do a lot of, like for mail automation, it requires equipment, it requires staff, it requires software and to follow up and an ability to get things to the Postal Service. So if you're doing huge volumes on a consistent basis, then it could make sense. It's hard to give a number in the sand. It really depends on what the savings are. But I would say that usually the number used to be lower, but with all the postal rules, more and more people are needing higher volumes to justify it. I would compare the automation doing the automation in-house to the idea of using a pre-sort service and having them just pick it up and take care of that automation levels for you, and see what ends up being better financially and from an operational standpoint.
Is there anything required of the package to use a commercial rate instead of a retail rate, as it is just a matter, or is it just a matter of making a different selection on your postage machine?
Sure. If you're running it through your postage machine and you're just running it through like an envelope, or you just kick a meter tape and you slap the meter tape on it, then that's a retail rate. The only way to get a commercial rate is to use some sort of program. Let me give you some examples. Stamps.com, Indicia, Pitney Bowes has SendPro, Web, Quadient has, I forget the name of Quadient's tool, but they have a tool. So the mailing vendors have a tool where you would literally have to type in the address of your piece and then either print an address label through a thermal label printer or on your regular printer and just tape it onto the item. That's the only way to get the commercial rates, is to basically follow that type of process through an approved tool.
Any other questions?
Good questions today.
Mm-hmm. Great. So also there is a handout on the main screen that you can download. It's the rate change comparison. If you're interested, you can download that right now. It's in a PDF format.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate everyone being on the call, and hopefully everyone got some information that they needed with it. So have a nice afternoon.